Hello, welcome to Active Life with Tammy. Today we are going to be doing a Yin Yoga practice for beginners. For anyone who's not familiar with Yin Yoga, it's a slower paced yoga where we concentrate on the Yin energy, which is slower, softer, darker, cooler, and we're focusing on that cool energy. So we are doing this practice while the muscles are cold. So some of you will say, I've heard that you should never stretch cold muscles, and you would be correct. So the whole point of Yin Yoga is actually not for our muscles. Yin Yoga is for our joints. So even though we're going to be doing some of the same poses that we would do in any other yoga class, the focus of the poses is different. So we're not focused on stretch here. We're focused on compressing the soft tissue in our joints. Word of caution is that if you have any serious issues in the joints, so maybe like a tear, like a meniscus tear or a tear in the shoulder, you're going to avoid doing yin yoga on that joint and proceed with caution. Go ask your doctor. But if you have something very light, like a light strain or a light sprain, yin yoga is a great choice that you can use to promote healing in that joint. And if you're having an issue in a joint and you're not sure what the problem is, go ahead, see your doctor first before you do this practice and get your doctor's okay. Before we begin, grab any props that you might have available. You may need them because we're going to be holding our poses for about 5 minutes for each pose that we do. If you're a beginner, just note that you don't have to do the whole 5 minutes. So you might feel a lot of discomfort and compression in the joint. It might just be too much for you starting off. And if you need to back off out of it after 1 or 2 minutes, that's perfectly okay. Maybe stretch it out a little bit, get a little blood flowing back into it, and then finish up the pose with us if you feel like you want to come back into it. So if you have yoga blocks, go ahead and grab a couple of blocks. If you don't have blocks, you can grab a blanket or a pillow, whatever you have available to give you a little bit of support through this practice. All right, we are going to begin with Baddha Konasana, which is a hip opener. We're going to walk our feet out a comfortable distance away from us, bringing the soles of the feet together, and you're going to roll the shoulders out wide. Take a breath in, and you're going to lift the knees up. And when you exhale, you're going to start relaxing the knees down. And just when you start to feel that little bit of resistance and tension, that's where you're going to stop. So a lot of us have really tight hips. So if you do, go ahead and roll up a blanket or grab a block and place it underneath the thighs, one on each side, and help support that pose. Okay, so when we start off, we're just searching for that little edge where we're starting to feel a little bit of tension. And we want to hold right there. Okay, relaxing into it. Don't go too far to start off with. Just feel that little edge of discomfort and start breathing into that spot. And remember, we're going to be here a little while, so go ahead, try to relax, make it as comfortable as you can. And because we are concentrating on the joints, it's okay to feel compression. It's okay to feel a little discomfort. You might even feel a little bit of a tingling sensation because we are creating compression in the joint, but you never ever want to feel pain. So if you're pushing to the point where it starts to feel painful, you really need to back off. Holding here again, consciously starting to let the hips open, starting to relax. Soft, deep breath. And remember the purpose of what we're doing here. Not so much worried about your muscles here. Don't worry about length or stretch. Really focusing on the joints, okay, especially that hip joint on each side. Each breath, maybe opening just a tiny bit more. Even if it's just a fraction of a millimeter, taking it little by little. Some who are less flexible are going to be feeling it, maybe with knees elevated way up here. Maybe super flexible people, you need a little bit more. It's okay to come forward a little bit if you want to. You could put a couple blocks down here and just ever so lightly reach forward. Slow and deep. Also introducing ourselves to the idea here that slow does not always mean easy. So when we create that compression, it can be very challenging to hold that pose for 5 minutes straight. So just kind of use your breath, relax into it. Just because we're not going fast doesn't mean this is going to be at all easy. And keep deepening into the pose if you need to. See if you can soften into it just a little bit more. It's a great pose for those tight, tired hips. Doing great. Just a little bit longer. And remember, if you needed to stop at any time, take a little break. Perfectly okay. And then finally, we're going to ease back on that pose. Bring the shoulders back up over the hips. You're going to reach behind you and nice and softly lift those knees. Did they feel a little stiff from holding that for a while? Perfectly natural. So that's what we mean about creating compression. So we're going to walk the feet apart here and just kind of counter that movement, bringing the knees in on each side just as far as you can. Oh, it feels so good to move those hips again. Holding it for a few seconds each way. I'd maybe do that one more time, each direction. Perfect. Okay, we're going to swing both legs over to one side. And we're going to bring ourselves over onto our hands and knees. Okay, and this is another spot where you're going to want your props handy. So we're going to bring the blocks a little bit further forward and bring the blanket back toward your chest. Okay, and you may or may not need the blanket. I'll show you what we're going to do here. Okay, so you're going to start off with your knees right underneath your hips and your wrists underneath your shoulders in a tabletop. And we're going to walk the hands forward and take them out a little bit wider than shoulder width apart. And keeping the hips stacked over the knees, we're going to come forward, lowering the chest and the head down to the mat. Now, if you need to, you can take your blanket and bring it over and bring it underneath the chest. Okay, and you can also grab one of your blocks and you can place the block in a position where your forehead can rest comfortably on it. It's going to be a little bit softer version of this. If you want something that's a little more intense, you can take your blocks and set them out on each side of your mat. We're going to set the hands on the blocks, and now when we lower down, we're going to create this sense of a little bit more work in through the shoulders. Okay, so lowering down. Okay, and this one is actually really intense for my shoulders, so I am going to remove the blocks for myself. But if you found that you needed that stretch to open up the shoulders a little bit more, please feel free to take that approach.
and we fold down. Also note that if you bring out the arms a little bit wider, that'll also make it just a little bit more comfortable. Okay, so this is one of those stretches that you might do in your yoga class at the end, and you hold it for just a few seconds and it feels really great. But you're going to feel a lot more intensity holding this for a lengthened period of time. So again, work within your own range, and if at any point you need to come out of this, shake it out a little bit, and then come back into it when you feel ready. Go right ahead. Also for this, if you're feeling like maybe you'd like to add a little bit of work into the neck, you can also take the head and move it to the side. And you're going to hold here on one side for half of our time. And then halfway through, of course, we switch. Turn your head to the opposite side. This actually feels really good for me. I feel a lot of tension, a lot in my neck and shoulders, and feeling the compression and release here feels really good. Okay. And if we've got the head down on one side, just switch to the opposite side. And then to release, walking the hands back. Oh, you can feel that in the shoulders. And feel that blood flow back into the shoulders. Nice little stretch here. Maybe sitting back a little mini child's pose. And then walking the hands back, countering that pose. Maybe a little stretch forward.
Perfect. Okay, next we are going to do a little dragon pose. So we're going to come back to tabletop, take a breath in, and curl your toes under. Exhale, lift to a little downward dog. And we just want to start off with this to create an opening pose so we can get into our dragon. We're going to take a breath in, and right leg is going to come up. And then exhale, step your right leg up and through. And we're going to lower this back knee down. Okay, and in the back, we're going to lift our toes and set them back down so that we've got the top part of our foot laying comfortably on our mat. And then hands coming down to the mat, holding right here. And if this is a little too intense, you can use your blocks here. So you can place them on each side, lift up on the blocks. If this is still too intense, take it up a little bit higher, whatever you need to do. And working into those hip flexors. So we should feel compression on one side and stretch on the other side. So feel the intensity start to build. So maybe this felt a little easy when we first came into it. Maybe not, but for some of us, maybe it was. But notice the longer we hold here, the more challenging it becomes. Important to remember your breathing here. Let your breathing help you through this. So your breathing is pulling in oxygen, oxygenating all your muscles. They need to be strong and hold here so that we can get those joints healthier. You can do this, getting more intense. Definitely feeling some heat down in the hip flexors. Remember, that's your breathing out. Almost there. And then let's release this slowly. I don't think I could go faster anyway. And we're just going to take that back and maybe move back into a little child's pose here. Counteract that stretch on one side. And maybe moving the hips from one side over to the other side, knees together. All right, are you ready for the other side? Probably not. Once we know what's in store from the first side, second side's a little scarier. All right, so we curl our toes under, take a breath in, and exhale. Let's lift those hips, little downward dog. And maybe we'll pedal it out here a little bit. Give that hip just another few seconds to recover. And then left side. Nice big stretch up. And then exhale. Swing that leg through. Stepping forward. Get yourself into position. Back knee comes down. Okay, find a position that's comfortable for you. Get your blocks handy if you need them. Okay, and then in the back, we uncurl those toes, fold them down to the mat, and we're going to hold right here. And again, compression on one side, stretch on the other side. And slowly, we let that intensity build again. And also, just a note that if you feel any stress in the knee that's down in the back, you can always grab your blanket, place it under your knee to just give it a little more softness, a little more support. Always make sure everything that needs support has support. Just starting to feel a little heat build in there now. For you, it could come sooner, could come later. We're all different. But when you feel that, just know that that's perfectly normal. That's what we're looking for. So when we create that compression in our joints, we're actually taking a few moments to starve the joint, we're cutting off the supply of blood and nutrients, which sounds awful, but it's not a bad thing. So when we release the compression, we get this surge of fresh blood and oxygen that comes rushing into the joint. And that's wonderful for promoting healing. So sometimes in our joints or in that soft tissue, we have inflammation building up and things start to get stagnant. We get blockages. So yin yoga is a process of releasing those blockages and allowing that blood supply to come flowing back into the joint with a fresh new perspective. Really starting to build right now. Definitely feel it. And we've got just about 1 more minute here. So if you're still with me, we're almost there. Five minutes doesn't seem like a long time until you do yin yoga. All right, so with me? Okay, this time we're just gonna push right back from this position. See if you can lengthen out that front leg. Yeah, a little stretch back here. Let that blood flow back into the hip. And then hands down. Toes are gonna curl under. We're gonna lift that back knee and step back to our downward dog. Lengthen out, hips lift. And then gently set your knees down. We're going to swing our feet around and come around onto our backs. Again, just keep your props handy just in case you need them. Maybe you'll need them, maybe you won't. And you're going to roll back. And you're going to let your arms fall out wide, little cactus arms here. And we're going to let our knees fall over to one side. It doesn't matter which side you pick first. We're going to do both sides. You could start with feet on your mat, knees falling over, or you could start off with knees over hips and let the legs fall over from there. If this is really intense, you grab your blocks and place it under the legs, or you could even put it between the thighs if you need to keep a little more space for hip rotation. Just find the spot that feels okay for you. And then once we get into that rotation, you're going to turn your head and look away from your knees. So you should be feeling sensations in your hips. You should feel it in the spine. You should feel it in the neck. A lot going on in this twisting pose. Just close your eyes here. And wherever you feel those little sensations, just direct your breath there. Anyone ready for the other side? Let's start with the neck. Roll your head so you're looking back up at your ceiling or at the sky, depends where you are. And we're going to lift the knees one at a time. And let's go ahead and grab the knees, draw them into the chest for a little stretch. Lengthen out the lower back. And then let's go to the other side. Okay, so arms come out, cactus arms. And remember, you can start with your feet on the mat. Let the knees fall to the side. Probably a little gentler to do it that way. Or you can start with knees stacked over the hips. And knees come out, little twist. Take a breath in. And when you exhale, go ahead and turn your head, look away from your knees.
Start to feel the sensations, soften your breath, and just trust your body to relax into this at its own pace. And of course, go ahead, use your blocks or your blanket if you need that extra support. Let your body slowly melt into it as it's ready. And remember our objective, thinking about all those areas of soft tissue in the body. Not so much thinking about lengthening or stretching, but thinking about those little areas that are getting compressed, all those areas that might be inflamed so often throughout our lives. Go ahead and let the pose allow for that compression so that when we release, we detoxify all those areas. And then roll the head back, looking back up toward the sky. We're going to lift one knee, lift the other knee. Keep that nice and slow for your lower back. And then go ahead and hug those knees into the chest again, releasing the lower back. And we're going to go from here right into Shavasana. I've got a blanket here, so for me, I think I'm going to take that blanket and roll it up and place it underneath my knees. So this should feel really good to support those legs after all that compression we did. Lengthening out the legs, relaxing back. Let the arms come down by your sides. Turn your palms up. And then maybe scrunch up your toes, almost like you were making a fist with your feet. And then stretch it out and relax your feet. And then see if you can engage the muscles in your legs. Engage, strengthen, and then big exhale and relax the legs. And then use your hands to make a fist. Breathe in. And then exhale. Relax the fingers. Open the palms of the hands. Release and relax your shoulders. Relax your jaw. Soften your face. And take a moment to take notice of all those little areas that felt all that compression and release. Maybe there's a little tingling going on in the body. That's a good thing. And just enjoy that feeling of cleansing in all those joints and tissues. You can even pet your cat at the same time. And we are going to end our practice right here today. For everyone that joined me and tried something new today, if you've never done Yin Yoga, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to try something new for yourself, being adventurous. I hope everyone got a wonderful experience out of this, and I hope to see everyone again very soon. Thank you so much for joining me. Namaste.